Hey everybody, Laura here. I thought I would show you another video on how I make my wood signs. So what I've gone ahead and done here is I've cut out my decal using Oracal 651, and I've basically taken the letters out, leaving the main background on. And this will help me because that way I can use paint to fill in the lettering. As you just saw, I added a heart at the end, and it wasn't that I added it, it's that I forgot to remove the vinyl from the heart, so I just had to add a little piece of contact paper to cover that so that it would transfer everything together. So after I've burnished it on, I'm going to go ahead and you saw me using that tool that is a seam gauge, and basically what I do is I measure each side, so from the H to the edge and the heart to the edge, and then I cut my backing using the straight line that is on there from Oracal, and then that allows me to line it up perfectly on my board. So my vinyl piece, my rectangle, is a 24 by 12, and sorry that I'm totally standing in the way here. It's a 24 by 8 because I'm using a 1 by, and then that allows me to basically assure that my painting or my stenciling is going to be perfectly centered and straight on the board. So you see how the bottom lip of my vinyl, basically, if I would get out of your way, I'm really sorry, you can see how I have no hangover on the bottom edge of my vinyl to my board. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some paint on here, and you're going to use like a sponge, and this is just an acrylic paint, craft paint. I get it at Hobby Lobby, nothing fancy. And then this is a pouncer. I found the best results using a pouncer because it allows me to get an even coating of the paint, and I always dab off the top of my sponge before I go onto a letter or a shape. And the reason for that is because if you put too much paint on, a lot of times that is how you get bleeding. So I have found that if I kind of press some of the paint away to the side first, and I just do a very light coat, and then I let it dry and I come back, I have way less bleeding and a lot more success. So you'll see that here in a second, because as you all know, I am very frugal and I really like to get the most out of all of my vinyl and my transfer tapes or contact paper. So because this was a 24-inch long board and it was only 8 inches wide, I knew that I could get 2 cuts out of one 12-inch wide piece of vinyl. So I went ahead and made a second sign. So the second sign, I used the exact same vinyl. I just made it together, and I'm going to reuse my transfer tape or it's contact paper. And again, I'm just going to burnish it on, and you're going to see me use that seam gauge again, but this time you're going to see me use it also at the top of the board and the bottom, because this is not the this red rectangle, if you will, is not the exact size of the board. So right now I'm just measuring to make sure that I can have everything centered correctly, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply it. So here I am measuring the top of the board, and now I'm going to measure the bottom of the board, and then I'm pressing my contact paper to the board. And what you're going to see me do here now is I'm going to pull off half of the vinyl from the backing, and then I'm going to cut away this backing. And then I'm going to apply this down and press firmly. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. This is called a hinge method, and the reason why I didn't do this on the Hello Fall is because, again, my vinyl rectangle was the size of my board, so I knew it was straight. But in this case, I needed to measure and make sure everything was correct. So I'm just burnishing it on really well. This also is super important for bleeding, and making sure with the little paint that you use, all of these things help in reducing the amount of bleeding. Also, another tip on bleeding, when you are sanding your boards, that is probably the number one mistake that I think people are making, and the reason why they're getting bleeding. You have to get a really smooth finish on that board. So the board that I'm using here is just a piece of regular pine or oak from the hardware store, and it's a 1x6, I believe, and I'm sanding with a 120 grit sandpaper using a Ryobi Orbital sander, and I will link this in the description below on what some of the things are that I use for my wood sign making. So now I'm going back to the Hello Fall sign, and I'm going for my second coat of paint. And again, you're seeing me kind of dab off of my stamping sponge just because I don't want to get it on too thick. Again, helping with bleeding. And then onto the second sign for the second coat of paint. And sometimes it really just depends the look that I'm going for, but sometimes I'll let the coats dry longer in between and I'll do 3 coats. It really just depends on what I'm going for and or what the customer is wanting. Okay, so now I'm just going to pull off the stencil and reveal the finished product. Now, you can either wait until it's dry, or if you're impatient like me, you can pull it off right away. It really doesn't matter. It just depends on the mess you want to deal with, because I obviously then get paint all over my hands because it's still wet. So you just have to go with what you prefer. If this is your first time ever doing a sign, I highly recommend you let it dry before you pull it off. So what you just saw me do on that bee, or what I'm doing right now, is I'm doing a little touch up with the paint. And the reason why is because when I went to go dig out the the inside of the bee, I kind of got my tweezers a little too deep into the wood. So I keep on hand some really small paint brushes, and that just allows me to go in and kind of touch up as I go, because sometimes it's just not perfect. Okay, so there you go. I hope this helps you guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos.